You are Bharat Singh. You run Jaipur Houses.
Yes.
You run 3 other pages of equal repute. First of all, I want to say thank you, bro. Because अभी ये series आई नहीं है इसलिए लोगों को पता नहीं है. अगर if you were not there, my Rajasthan experience of meeting your friends from Mayor College Ajmer and guiding me to meet very interesting individuals and the fascinating walks that you do in Jaipur and who you are, your knowledge and history was very instrumental to me having a great time in Rajasthan. Seriously, you were the anchor point for that.
Oh, no, I'm glad. Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you. And I know that you'd enjoy meeting these friends of mine because I think we're all very similar in what we want to do and how we like to have fun. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, they also had a blast meeting you because I did go back and message them and ask, how was it?
ये complete village idiots तो नहीं थे. हम तो we're all from nice prep schools. These guys from Haryana, were they total jerks or no? No, your friends were super nice. And you are a self-taught historian, which is one of the great things about your captions. And just आज हम लोग just सूरजकुंड में भी गए थे. You already knew so much about सूरजकुंड का founder कौन है, मतलब सूरजकुंड को किसने बसाया था. So let's start with some history.
Yeah.
Many see Jaipur as this place जिसके अंदर आमेर है, फोर्ट और हवा महल है और आजकल अच्छे अच्छे बार्स आ गए हैं, बार पलेडियो नेटिव ये सब आ गए हैं. But who is the founder of Jaipur?
The founder of Jaipur is, as people say, the Solomon of India, some books have called him, who is Savai Jai Singh the second. Now, we all know about the rulers of Jaipur and Amber belong to this dynasty called the Kachawas. But a lot of people attribute the birth of this dynasty to Savai Jai Singh or to Raja Man Singh, who came a few generations before him. But Amber was actually established almost back in 1135. Some say a little more, maybe like a few years before or after that. But yeah, around 1135 is when the first prince came from this place called Narwar, which is in Madhya Pradesh right now. So, in fact, a lot of people actually attribute the same family to have built or at least laid the foundation of the Gwalior fort, the ones that the Scindias now, or at least at one point, ruled from. So
Kachawa dynasty का कोई link है?
Yes, so the dynasty that was ruling there were called the Kachapa Ghatas. And they say Kachawa is more of a abranch or a corruption of the word Kachapa Ghata. And of course, because it's strangely when you read old literature on Jaipur and Amber, very seldom do they use the word Kachawa. They use Kachapa, they use Kurma, which is basically another word for a tortoise.
Okay, so उनका symbol tortoise है क्या?
That's what people assume, that's what they believe that it could have been there. There is no fixed story. There's also another name for the dynasty which is called Kushwa, because the family also claims descent from Lord Ram's older son, Kush.
Yeah, so do the Kasanas.
So do the Kasanas,
The
I've
number
heard.
of people who claim, yaar, matlab, I don't know how comfortable you're in English. चलेगी? English will work?
English would work better for me.
English will work.
I'm embarrassed about that, but
No,
it is
it's okay. But
truth of it.
you know another language which is very cool. You are now learning Dhundri, I believe, or Rajasthani.
So yeah, that's another, So Dhundari, I'm trying to pick up, but not only Dhundari, I'm trying to pick up the local Boli. And once I think you learn how to pick that up, you can speak Marwadi, you can speak Dhundari, which is the Jaipur language, you can speak Mewadi, which is the language they speak in Udaipur, Hadoti, which is what they speak in Kota, Bundi.
Okay.
So yeah, I am trying to brush up my local Boli, but of course I don't have the intelligence that people do have. Language is a sort of intelligence that certain people possess, which I don't have. So English is my forte. And now that I keep throwing in a little bit of Hindi of it, I say I speak English more than anything else. So
what is Rajasthani as a language then? You may have it.
Rajasthani is not really a language as such, because there are different dialects within Rajasthan. But sadly, even if you go to the streets of Jaipur and ask them that, what language do the locals speak out here? They say Marwadi. So Marwadi has become this sort of blanket term for all Rajasthani languages.
And मुझे पता है कि मेरे region, my travels through the region have told me कि Marwad is like in central Rajasthan.
That's right.
So that region is not Jaipur at all.
Not at all. So Dhundar is a region of Jaipur. Marwar would comprise of Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, Bikaner and Bardmer, which is what we think of Rajasthan. Dunes, lots of camels, a shortage of water, But
And
the eastern Rajasthan is a completely different story. I mean,
do you use credit cards?
I do, of course. I have two, I think.
Many young people watch my finance podcasts and they ask me, Vinamre, what's the best first credit card? I have an answer. It's the HDFC Bank Pixel credit card. This is not your usual credit card, and I think it's a game changer for digital natives because what no other credit card can do, Pixel can. It's a build it yourself card. With this card, you're in control. Pick your top 2 brand packs across categories like travel, entertainment, fashion, grocery, electronics, and earn 5% cashback. Select your online platform for 3% cashback on Amazon, Flipkart, or PayZapp and get 1% unlimited cashback on everything else. And it doesn't just stop there, okay? You can choose your billing date, your card color, and change it whenever you like. You can also choose how you repay, full amount or pay in parts with EMIs. What I personally love, all of these are changeable anytime. Plus, it's all digital via PayZapp. Apply, control, track, and spend with Tap and Pay. If you ask me, I think this is India's smartest, most flexible credit card. So if you're looking to start your credit card journey, start with the HDFC Bank Pixel credit card.
Yeah.
Simplistic notions of Rajasthan that I have seen as stereotypes in India, in the north also. यहाँ पे मारवाड़ी रहते हैं, यहाँ पे राजपूत रहते हैं, बाकी कम्युनिटीज रहती नहीं है. बहुत बहुत अकाल है, बहुत करीबी और बहुत खूबसूरत लग्जरियस होटल्स हैं. एंड व्हेन आई मेट यू इन जयपुर द फर्स्ट डे आई न्यू कि हम तो बहुत अलग एक्सपीरियंस करने वाले हैं राजस्थान. You are the inheritor of such a fantastic history that every single day, every single walk you take, even through Jaipur, reminds you कि यार ये रहा 5वीं सदी का ये रहा 11वीं सदी की ये चीज़, ये रहा इस राजा का ये. I think people don't really appreciate Rajasthan for just its heritage contributions to India. या अगर वो देखते हैं तो फिर वो टूरिस्ट साइट देख के चले जाते हैं. Like even through your walks, you took me to a temple जिसके अंदर क्या आप बता रहे थे कि हर प्रकार के भगवान की हर अवतार की फोटो बनी हुई थी. What was that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is one of my favorite temples, and like we discussed, one of the more underrated ones because despite being in the center of Jaipur, it's rarely visited by people. And so most of the themes in Jaipur that we'll see, I mean, we all hear about Shekhawati being this open air gallery with painted Havelis, but Jaipur, I feel, is the same quality. And you have hundreds of temples and Havelis that are painted with basically 3 or 4 themes. One is the Mahabharat, the Ramayana, and what we discussed, the 10 Avatar, so the 10 incarnations or manifestations of Vishnu Bhagwan. So you'll see a lot of this represented in either carvings in temples or in murals, wall paintings. So the one that we went to, there were all the 10 different avatars were painted on the walls, if you remember. And then we spoke about that beautiful story of the 10 Avatar actually having a direct link, or sorry, my mistake, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution having a direct link to the 10 Avatar, because the 10 Avatar, they say, is just a more elaborate way of explaining Darwin's theory, because Darwin talks about the physical growth of life. The 10 Avatar talks about the physical and the sort of psychological growth of the human being, from being hunter-gatherers to living in civilized society to going to politics to going to enlightenment. And of course, there's the 9th Avatar that was considered to be Lord Buddha in most of the lists, was considered to be the time when human beings reached this sort of stage of spiritual enlightenment, or at least we could.
Right.
And the 10th Avatar, Kalki Ji, and Jaipur has this beautiful old temple built by Savai Jai Singh for the god Kalki. There's a different story to it, which if we have time, we can get to. But yeah, so Kalki is the only sort of god amongst the pantheon in Hinduism that's yet to be born. Yes. Every other god has been sort of taken birth in a different form or the other. But Kalki Ji is the only one there.
If I look up images of Kalki, you'd be surprised. जब मैं छोटा था, मैंने Kalki की images देखी थी. This is before the movie actually came around. So
oh yeah,
it's also right now. It's all these images of this.
Oh yeah,
this god on a horse. All of that.
And his horse is a name called Devdutt.
Devdutt, right? Not Patnaik, है ना?
No.
So, but I remember because Kalki has not been born, some people had an idea that he will come to the earth when all is doomed.
Right.
And see, he was shown with matted locks on a motorbike looking at garbage because
Right.
nothing was left. Wait, let me try and see Kalki's on a
Oh
motorbike.
wow, that's
So while I look it up, what is the story about Kalki? And there, no man. Oh, it's gone.
oops.
Too bad. But they actually have
It's-
a Kalki motorbike.
No, I'm sure because a lot of people have theorized that the white horse is just a metaphor for. Some people have said that it could be, and I don't want to get into crackpot theories at all, but it could be a sort of
There it is.
flying object that he comes down in. It basically, oh wow, very cool actually.
Yeah. It's all 3D, etc.
Yeah.
उन्होंने एक घोड़े का सर बना के वो बना दिया है सामने का. And Kalki looks like
Oh,
a
cool. That's actually that's well adapted in a way.
yeah. But you were saying
It reminds me of the. Have you seen Ghost Rider?
yeah, I've seen
There's
Ghost
this
Rider.
beautiful scene where the new Ghost Rider is on his motorcycle with, and then the old vintage one is riding his horse with the hat, and they go riding together to the, which is one of the final scenes. It's but I mean that just there's nothing like comparing the old and the new together in that way. So yeah, I mean Kalki is a good Kalki Ji is probably a good example of that. And for all Vishnu avatars have always come and taken birth on Earth because at that point there's been some sort of how do you say it? I'm forgetting the word for it, but there's been some sort of
Anarchy?
imbalance, anarchy. Evil is really sort of dominating over good, and there's a need for Vishnu to take birth and sort of balance that out because he is the preserver. So that's the other beautiful thing that in my sort of journey of trying to document these old houses and heritage structures, it's kind of difficult to ignore the Hindu philosophy part of it because Jaipur was actually built, whether people like it or not, as an orthodox Hindu city. Jai Singh wanted to sort of revive the Vedic arts, wanted to revive, and that's why if you see, even in the palace, there's no Diwane Aam, Diwane Khas, which is more a Persianate sort of term.
Crazy.
The Diwane Aam is called the Sabha Nivas, which is borrowing from old Sanskrit, and the Diwane Khas is called Sarvatto Bhadra, which is actually the name of this Vedic structure. I mean, where
Sarvato Bhadra is probably like the highest of the Shiva. Bhadra is, I don't know.
so what I read, and according to my research, it's basically an open pillared hall. If you remember, we didn't visit the city palace. We did visit the city palace in one of those evenings, but it's basically an open pillared hall with 4 closed rooms on the corners.
Okay.
So it's a type of a structure basically. So they just sort of decided to choose to call the Diwane Khas with the name of the structure. But Jai Singh was in this sort of mission to brush off the yoke of the Mughals. And surprisingly, I spoke to you about the Kachawas not being sort of called Kachawas, being called Kurmbas or Kachapas. The Mughals were never called the Mughals. They were always the Timurids
Right.
or the Gurkhanis. In fact, the funny part is the Mughals will be turning in their graves if they hear about how much people have started because they didn't want to identify with the Mughal sort of heritage that they had. So Jai Singh was in this process of brushing off the yoke of the Mughals. Aurangzeb had died. The Mughal Empire was on this very sort of steady decline. And even if you go around Jaipur, most people say that, the new city was built because they were falling short of water, resources, the regular run-of-the-mill touristy things. But if you really sort of dive deep into it, you realize Jai Singh's ambition was sort of seeing the decline of the Mughal Empire, was to create this city that would rival the Mughal capitals of Delhi and Agra.
I was going to ask you how important was Jaipur to the time of Jai Singh? Did he inherit a broken Jaipur? Did he inherit a Jaipur जिसमें बहुत कम temples थे? Did he inherit a Jaipur which was administratively lax? Did he inherit a Jaipur which was surrounded by thugs and mercenaries, that kind of thing? And then how did he sort of
So
bring
Jai
back
Singh,
order?
just to sort of correct you, they didn't inherit Jaipur at all. He built it, right? He was born a prince of Amber,
Okay.
which is basically the older capital.
जो fort दिखता है.
जहाँ fort दिखता है, which is actually not the fort, it's the palace of Amber. The fort is Jaigarh,
Okay.
which is called the guardian of Amber, which looks over the fortified town of Amber. And Amber, the thing that we call the palace, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is actually a palace in itself, which is connected to the other palaces. So Amber in itself, the entire town is one single unit of fortification.
अच्छा मतलब उसकी चार दीवारी के अंदर you
It
can
has 3 rings of fortified walls around it.
That's crazy.
And of course, the palace in the center connected to smaller palaces belonging to other queens and noblemen.
And would the populations live inside the fortifications? Because
A lot of them, but most of them would live inside the parkota, as we call it. So inside the boundary wall, all of them would be stay there. In fact, back in the day, just before sunset, the gates would be shut. You wouldn't be allowed entry inside or out. And so there were these little sarais made by Man Singh. And these sarais are places where you still find old stepwells because, of course, he had to create some sort of water system for people spending the night there. And so the parkota would be shut, and it was supposed to be a secure place. I mean, that's why a lot of people would flock to these cities because the rulers sort of promised them or guaranteed them protection. And because of that, Amber, I mean, I always correct people when they say Amber is not a fort. The entire town is a fortified town. Amber Palace is the one that we visit, and Jaigarh is the one that is overlooking Amber. So if there was ever a fight, they would retreat to the palace and then, of course, retreat into the main fortress. And that fortress is where you have the... Sorry, I'm selling
not at all.
Jaipur. But that fortress is the one that has the largest cannon in the world, Jaiban, if you've heard of it.
I have not. We skipped Amir. No.
So they've shot it once, apparently, and it reached about 60 kilometers far away, the
That's
cannonball.
a small missile, I would assume.
Yeah, it's a sort
It's
of
only
mini...
been shot once, like in
Only once.
modern
It's-
times.
I mean, ever. It just had
So
to be
एक
shot
बार ही
once.
बनाई थी. किसको
Yeah.
मार रहे थे?
It was more just trial kar rahe the. It was more of a sort of weapons development sort of thing that, that Raja has such a huge cannon,
It
but
was
you
their
won't really
Pokhran,
need it.
basically. You know, it was-
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It was their Pokhran.
So very interesting that I ended up watching this movie called Kingdom of Heaven a few days ago.
Yeah.
इसकी वो reels बड़ी viral होती है ना. It was like this Edward Norton is behind a mask and he's saying that at 16 I won a great victory. At that time I thought I would live forever. Now I know I shall not see 30 because actually he's a leper, right? That's the...
I haven't seen Kingdom of Heaven.
Oh,
but,
sorry,
gosh,
I fucking
yeah.
spoiled it for you. But
No, please.
There's too much. He's not the protagonist of the movie.
Yeah.
But in the movie there is in fact an attack from a big army. And ये लोग क्या करते हैं कि ये सिटीजन जो यहाँ गए होते हैं उनको चार दीवारी के अंदर रख लेते हैं वापस कि आप सारे अंदर आ जाओ. From the outside the archers are, throwing whatever.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
वो जो क्या कहते हैं that big catapult like flaming catapults, the stuff that you
Trebuchet, I think. you call it.
Trebuchet, wow, yeah, trebuchet, those things. They throw those trebuchets and all of that, and the population is more or less protected because they're inside. So that's what I was asking you. These you said it has three boundaries, three levels
Three
of
walls. I've
fortification.
taken pictures of it. I'll show it to you.
हाँ, so we will add it to the podcast as well. So 3 level of fortification का मतलब मैं ये पूछ रहा हूँ कि बीच में पैलेस है यानी कि बीच में रह रहा है राज्य, that is the most protected. And
Correct.
Inside just the last wall is the population. Is that where the sarais
Yeah.
are?
So outside the last wall is where the sarai is.
Oh, so they're outside the palace.
Outside the wall, outside the 3 rings, basically.
Okay, and they're not protected. Like, is this?
No,
whole...
I mean these are basically for visitors. So Amber lay between Agra and Ajmer, in that sense.
Okay.
So it was a very sort of popular route for the emperor, especially Akbar, since he really considered Salim Chishti, the Moinuddin Salim Chishti, as his sort of spiritual guru at the time. So there was constant travel between these places. You'll still find Akbar's Kos Minars. You know what these? You've
Kos
got these,
minars क्या होते हैं?
these little minarets that are made. So every kos, so at that time the unit of measurement was kos,
Kos.
which was I think little more than a mile. I'm not sure.
Huh.
But every kos you would find it so that you'd know the route from Agra to Ajmer. And
He had marked his own route with his minars.
he has marked his own route. So every time people would go there, you'd know, okay, the next minar, second minar, third minar. Now you find them in the middle of a khet somewhere, किसी के ढाबे के बीच में कोई मंदिर से चिपका हुआ. So I've been trying to sort of just map and document these, whatever little is left. Because they were interesting structures. Because of that, Amber, I mean, there was a lot of sort of, not trade in that sense, but because when the Kachawas and the kingdom was in Amber, it was still very military and agriculture based, right? I mean, that's what most kingdoms are like. And Amber was like any other kingdom built by the Rajputs in Rajasthan around the Aravlis. It has a natural barrier, the Aravali Hills, and the city obviously grew very haphazardly, correct? So if you see it from the top, it's like a tangled web.
Correct.
Now, when we go to talk about Jaipur, you'll see why Jaipur has this sort of distinction in cities in India and abroad. Because of it was straight to a fault. Sorry, I'm like jumping to Jaipur now.
No, not at all. In fact, I remember मेरे podcast पे एक Jaipur-based astrologer आई थी. उन्होंने बोला one of the best places
Oh, yeah.
Vastu wise. She was into Vastu and all.
Yeah.
She said ki it's Jaipur.
No, absolutely. Jaipur was built on the principles of Vastu. And when you tell people that, they, get all thinking it's all superstitious and stuff, which it's not. It was extremely logical about how to build a city or a house or any structure based on light, ventilation, and placing these structures or building things according to energy. So you'd place you wouldn't put two mirrors in front of each other, and there are lots of technicalities. I haven't really studied Vastu, but the basic principle of it was light and ventilation. And if you see Jaipur, it would have been, I don't want to talk about where it's going now, because it's a little embarrassing for me, but if you see Jaipur when it was built, I mean, between every house, there were these, now we call them ganda galis, but these little corridors meant for ventilation. It was built in material that was actually very eco-friendly. And so today also, when you go to these lime plaster, beautiful old havelis and temples, when you walk in the summer, it's nice and cool. And when you walk in the winter, it's slightly warm. So Jaipur is actually a marvel. I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm from Jaipur. Of course, a little bit, everyone has a little bias.
But no, it's fine. You're entitled to your biases.
When people come to the city, I've seen how, and I do these walks for a lot of foreign travelers. I mean, they're little short of open, they're little short of sort of standing with their mouth open, almost drooling. Because for designers, for photographers, for architects, for historians, it's a treasure trove.
Talk to me more about Jaising creating this city. जैसे अब हम लोग अगर बात करें, सब बोलते हैं भाई रोमन एम्परर्स में मार्कस ऑरेलियस से तोप या सीजर से तोप कोई नहीं है. These were ambitious men with big dreams to either manage or protect or even grow an empire.
Right,
Marcus Aurelius was in the midst of several long drawn-out battles, and Caesar was known for his courage. And in the south, you've got the Cholas and Krishnadeva Raya. सबके अपने अपने मुँह हैं. But I don't know too much about Jaising as much as I know about the city Jaipur, and now the connectivity between Delhi and Jaipur is so great that I can visit it as much as possible. What made Jaising create this city? क्या आम्बेर में कोई दिक्कत चल रही थी या ये अपना expand करना चाह रहे थे अपना राजपूत empire? क्या था ये?
So, in fact, I'm sorry I didn't address that because I remember you asking also. Jaising was born around 1689 in Amber, right? He was born as the son of a prince. That means his father wasn't ruling at the time. And so, like every dynasty and kingdom, there was a lot of sort of infighting between brothers and factions of the family to take the throne. And so Jaising was born at the time when the Kachawas weren't actually, contrary to popular belief, very close to the Mughal emperors. Of course, Raja Man and his father were very close to Akbar. But by the time Aurangzeb had come, and Jaising was responsible in a way, Jaising and his son, Jaising the first, not the second, was in a way responsible for the escape of Shivaji, right? I mean, Jaising was the one in the Treaty of Purandar who went and convinced him. They had great terms, and of course, because of Jaising the first, who we call Mirza Raja Jaising, not Savai Jaising, because of Mirza Raja Jaising's sort of promise, Aurangzeb does come to the court of, Shivaji does come to the court of Aurangzeb. And of course, he's not treated well, and Shivaji tells him to go take a hike. And somehow Jaising and his son Ram Singh help Shivaji escape, and because of that, they get into the bad books of Aurangzeb, who's now trying to sort of just reduce the sort of liberties they have.
And these guys are outmatched in terms of the power when it comes to Aurangzeb versus Jaising.
I mean, yeah, and that during, Aurangzeb's heyday, he was extremely powerful. And a large reason for that, which I was also curious as to why, because the Mughals, the imperial army, had a standing army. A lot of the Rajput armies were unorganized. So that means when you're having a war or a battle, you call your banners, and so they all get together, but they're not training the entire year together. So even when they have a battle, there is no sort of discipline in that sense.
Like the IPL.
It is like the IPL, although the IPL is pretty interesting. And
it's become competitive, but if you just gather a bunch of stars and you expect that they all will play together, chemistry and organization and formation, it's not going to happen.
And especially communities like the Rajputs, who've always sort of had great relations with each other, but also fought each other all the time. I, in fact, want to read out this little excerpt, which is just brilliant from... So Rudyard Kipling actually comes to Rajasthan in the late 1800s. And he travels to Jodhpur, he travels to Amber, he travels to all the big kingdoms, and he writes about it. So second. Sorry, I'm just going to get this. Yeah, there it is. And so I found his writings extremely interesting because he writes about my community, which is the Rajputs, which I have been studying for a while. And he writes about Jaipur. And so he writes that east of Suez, right, men do not build towers on top of hills for the sake of the view, nor do they strip the mountainsides with bastion stone walls to keep in cattle. Since the beginning of time, if we are to credit the legends, there was fighting, heroic fighting at the foot of the Aravallis and beyond, in the great deserts of sand penned by those kindly mountains from spreading over the heart of India. The 36 royal races fought as royal races know how to do. Chauhan with Rathore, brother against brother, son against father. Later, but excerpt from the tale of force, fraud, cunning, desperate love, and more desperate revenge. Crime worthy of demons and virtues fit for a god. Now, I'm not reading the entire thing, but this sort of paragraph I just found it so cinematic, literate and everywhere that it actually got my goosebumps. I got goosebumps reading it. And that's when I sort of realized that I have to, this is also going to be one focus of study, is try and just find, because there are lots of misconceptions when it comes to the Rajput clan. We're digressing from Jai Singh again.
No, that's fine.
There's lots of misconceptions when it comes from the Rajput clans, whether it's in today's date or since independence, right? So because of that, I found it almost like a moral obligation of mine to sort of study the Rajputs. Of course, never say that I am an expert in any of the things. In fact, I keep telling people I'm not an architect or a designer or any fancy. I'm a student. And
Those
I'm
are the best
always
types.
Exactly, because you enjoy it way more than sort of having those fancy diplomas and degrees. But of course, that helps.
If you try to portray yourself as an expert and आप सोचते हो कि आपकी डिग्रीज आपको एक्सक्यूज करती हैं अपनी क्यूरोसिटी आपने जो 5 साल पहले छोड़ दी थी क्योंकि अब तो पद मिल गया है.
Right.
I think it's a horrible disservice to the discipline that you're in, which is something that plagues many historians. So the fact that you are so eager to learn, and one thing that I really like about you is you express your disapproval when you're like, यार ये बात थोड़ी uncomfortable है, मैं बता देता हूँ आपको, लेकिन क्या है बात? which is nice, because one of the problems with, like we were discussing, ये जो समाज है, communities होती हैं, is like, if forget general communities, ऐसे इंडिया में बोलते हैं, forget the Brahmins. If you just think about Gujars, Jats, Ahir, Rajputs, और आपके यहाँ पे भील मीना भी आ जाते हैं.
Ajgar, as we call them.
Ajgar, right? Here, the Ajgar
That's a
phenomenon.
recent term I've learned. Yeah.
So the Ajgar phenomenon is very prominent here. In Rajasthan, it's not so much. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि the infighting has now gone to the caste level, the community level, where it's no longer about Shekhawat versus Rathore versus Shaktawat, जो आप बोल रहे थे कि आपस में लड़ाई करते रहते हैं, which is the premise of the Gulal film, right? He wants to
there was a lot of infighting, but there was also unity when it came to fighting against a common outsider, like Bappa Rawal would have done with the sort of Arab invasions and stuff also back in the day. Why did Ghazni, or why did they take so long to come? And it was because of the Rajputs constantly sort of fighting and dying and fighting. Of course, there was pushback, but there were a lot of heroic battles where everyone got together. In fact, very few people know this, but even Babur, during the Battle of Khanwa, was not only fighting Rana Sanga, he was fighting Prithviraj of Amber, was fighting Rao Maldev of Marwar. In fact, when Sanga gets injured, it's Raja Prithviraj, the ruler of Amber at the time, and Maldev who carry him off the field. So there was that sort of unity, you know. That's the beauty of the Rajputs also. It's like a family, right? You can curse your brother, but you don't want someone else coming from outside doing it.
Of course.
So
how dare they?
Exactly. So that's how it is in a way.
In contemporary times, we find that, and I think this is unwarranted. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आजकल लोग राजपूत पे aspersions करते हैं that they would often use diplomatic alliances with the Mughals, that they would, have marriages, political marriages with the Mughals, and that is something that the Rajputs have tried really hard and strong to remove that. Before, I'm not a Rajput, but मैं ये बोलना चाहता हूँ, no other community was tasked with protecting such an important border state.
Right,
I think credit should be given there, because agar koi aur community, for example, if an XYZ community of Uttar Pradesh comes and says that you did this or you didn't do this enough, I would say go and live in that land and see what happens when you're at the forefront of constant invasions and attacks. will होता है इंसान का, indomitable will होता है, लेकिन इंसान इंसान होता है. That is my view, but why do you think these aspersions have sort of come about nowadays?
And then thank you for sort of acknowledging that also, because I feel Rajputs, it's like how we joke around that people love to hate us in a way that, I think as of now, Rajput as a community also, in some ways, at least during independence, people looked at us as part of our pre-independent history. Rajputs represented a feudal system which people considered and would be considered even today archaic. But I feel that Rajputs as a community were boxed into that, and it wasn't really fair the way they were treated, because if you really stop at everything and just take independence, right? Of course, we fought battles and lots of communities did, and this goes beyond Rajasthan. Some people think of Rajputs only belonging to Rajasthan, but it starts from Himachal. I mean, some people say that Sansar Chand Katoch was actually a descendant of King Porus, who fought Alexander. So, I mean, the sort of martial spirit was always there with the community, and they died, they lost, they won. There was all sorts of sort of incidents. But in independence, during independence, not one Raja or Rajput Raja actually sort of hesitated to give their kingdom, right? The question was, who do we give it to, if at all? And 99.9% went with India, gladly gave everything they had. There was no uprising, revolution. If you think of any other sort of transfer of power.
Kashmir, Hyderabad, I forget, there's a few.
Even the Russian Revolution, if you think about, and any other European sort of, the French Revolution, their royalty their kings and queens were massacred in a way. Why did that not happen in India? It's because, there was no, I'll tell you this very beautiful thing that someone mentioned to me right now. There was no oppression in the sense of in the Western sense, right? Obviously, these Western writers would come to India and then try to put their own sort of Western lens to try and gauge what happened. And that's their way of understanding things. But in India, the feudal system, obviously there would be exceptions. But that exceptions is not the norm. The norm would be that the sort of, the chief of the clan or the ruler of the area or the Thakur of the village would just extract enough tax from the farmer that it wouldn't hurt them. It's compared to how a bee sort of extracts nectar from a flower, right? So you don't spoil the flower. You just take just enough so that you can sort of pay and take care of the entire setup, but you leave everything else for the farmer. So that was the concept that went behind this. So when independence happened, the Rajas and the Thakurs and the Raos and the Ranas were all considered to be more family, like father figures in a way, There was no animosity towards them. There was no need for people to storm into their palaces and loot them and kill them. It was almost, a lot of them didn't want to align with India, and they needed the Maharajas to explain to them that this is where the world is headed, and we also have to be part of that change. So I think there's just not so much credit given. And I'm not from any of the Maharaja families at all. Rajputs are also of different types, of course. Not everyone can be a Maharaja. I'd call myself as more of a soldier. But the fact that the Rajput community was just sort of, and you see that in Bollywood, you see that in lots of literature, was just sort of shown in this negative light as people who exploit the poor, people who are chasing village women out there. For us, it was actually, even today, for the Rajputs, you don't pray so much to Shivji or Vishnuji. It's always Mataji. When you meet each other, it's Jai Mataji ki. The mother goddess is the main deity, the main sort of patroness, if there's a...
Karni Mata, if I'm not wrong.
So Karni Mata is one of them. Karni Mata, my grandmother's family follows Karni Mata, but she was one of the things. With Mataji, Karni Mata is also a form of one of the main goddess, right? And so Mataji was the main, like if you see the Maratha war cry and everything, it's all Jai Bhavani. I'm forgetting the one that they have for Shivji.
I would not know.
Har Har Mahadev.
Har Har Mahadev. Oh,
So in for Rajputs, it was always just Mataji, Jai Mataji ki. And so women were given, if not more, were given great respect and importance. And because of that, there was just this sense of family that developed in kingdoms.
Have you heard about Anup Mandal?
Anup?
Mandal.
No.
There's this uncle I met, the one who took me to meet the Beals in Udaipur.
Oh, right. Okay, the one that you...
Yeah, so I was told by your friend...
Jayvrat, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jayvrat, this gentleman follows Anup Mandal. It's an interesting religious movement where the Beals and this Anup gentleman have decided that the sole problem plaguing the Beals is the Sahukar Banyas. And so it's ये तो यहाँ कछावा रीजन में ये सब चल रहा है, right? Like ये क्या
So ये तो उदयपुर हो गया, you're talking about, yeah.
So the reason I bring this up is the local micro histories are so rich and so diverse, then one is bound to be caught up in ये इस क्लैन का है. अब आपके वहाँ पे गुजरों को धबाई बोलते हैं. I had no idea.
Because I'll tell you why. What is a dhabai?
It's like the woman who cares for the queen.
No, so what is a dhaima?
वो
I'm sure you've heard it. I mean, just
midwife.
No, you're basically your milk mother,
Ah,
right?
what?
Yeah, your milk mother. So a lot of kings or princes were sort of fed by the dhaima. who
But
were
how would she
basically
lactate?
Because she would have babies at that time, and there's this great story about the dhaima in Udaipur, who sacrifices her own son so that the prince could live, because she portrayed her own son
Yeah,
as the.
it's a Gujar tale. It's a tale of Gujar Rajput.
This is Marwar or Udaipur, I'm forgetting. Both have a story like this.
I know about this story. I think your friend or this uncle told me this
Exactly.
story.
So Dhabhai was basically your ma, your Dhaima's son was the Dhabhai.
आप लोग आपस में लड़ाई क्यों करते हैं राजपूत सारे?
I think the funny thing is big ego. I mean, all of us are very independent sort of thinkers. And the serious answer is that I think over years there's been such long sort of connections to the land that naturally there are little sort of rivalries that would emerge. These people that would fight each other were the same people who were also marrying their daughters and sisters to each other. So fighting and battle became a bit of the culture. Not fighting and battle that you would fight each other and destroy the city and break the temples and take the women. And, you know, it was very almost where the local folk were not harmed at all. It was very one-on-one. You lose the battle and you sort of shake hands. And then maybe you marry your daughter to the king out there as a sort of peace offering, as a sort of way of saying that, okay, you know, or you pay them a certain amount of money. But the culture of fighting, like I just read out, there's always been fighting, whether it's against brother, father, son, clan versus clan. It's just so deep rooted into the thing where issues would be sort of settled with fighting, right? And that's where the martial spirit sort of comes in, where you've sort of been brought up in this culture that gives importance to battle, right? I mean, that's how you sort of, to strength. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel there's been a lot of, because it's just so natural to the Rajputs. I mean, right, how do you settle a dispute between us? Let's go take your swords out, let's sort of, so much so that, I mean, there's an article written, or somewhere in one of these books it's written that Akbar was so surprised that the Rajputs, even in the evening while drinking with each other, would stab each other. You know, would be where he would say, he'd be like, what the hell are you guys doing? You know, I need you. Please don't waste your valuable blood. And he considered, and Akbar was in a way, I mean, a lot of people say liberal, maybe, but he was fascinated by the whole culture of Rajput. So much so that he didn't keep a beard and stuff, right? He was clean shaven with a mustache, almost resembling.
That's very peculiar considering that almost all the Mughal emperors, जो आप उनकी painting देखते हो, सबकी वो ऐसी गोल वाली दाढ़ी होती है, which is very obvious Muslim behavior.
Exactly. But for him, he was really, I mean, fascinated. And people have, James Todd has, I'm not comparing myself to them, but even I have this sort of, because I grew up in Calcutta, in a very sort of anglicized, urbanized way. So when I started when I was introduced to the Rajputs, it hit me like a storm in a way that I was just sort of dreaming about it all the time, about these. I mean, it's like any fantasy book. If you like Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, the Chronicles of the Rajputs. I mean, I have 10 scripts for you if anyone's listening. If anyone wants to write an interesting, it is a step beyond Game of Thrones and stuff like that. It's that full of intrigue, character, loss, love.
Sure, after having met you and your friends, and भाई मेरी तो किसी ना किसी से लड़ाई खुद भी हो जाती थी, पता नहीं क्यों. हमें आदत है, अच्छा हम थोड़े खड़ी बोली में बात करते हैं, और you've met someone, you've like seen how annoying and irritating he is, like
well, I quite enjoy this
completely amplifying, exaggerating all stories. I have fake claims, completely fake, false, reliable, unreliable.
He's a true storyteller, that means.
No, not at all. Not at all. Trust me, if I wanted him to do my propaganda, I would hoist him up. But no. But you've seen that we're generally like combative as individuals. If not combative, a little bit boisterous. हमारे को राजस्थान के लोगों ने they fought back. They fought back. It's like, oh, मैं गाड़ियाँ नहीं लगाऊंगा, लगानी पड़ेगी. Oh, like even in the hospitality industry, the bigger the mustache, the bigger the ego. क्योंकि हम गए पुष्कर में कमरा लिया, यहाँ तो सर मिल ही नहीं सकता कमरा ऐसे. He's like this. Now imagine someone in Delhi does that, like in a you're like, what the hell? But you realize gradually. So Rajasthan in this way, especially with the Rajputs, was an acquired taste. Because right now, बहुत सारे लोग इस पे भी controversy करेंगे कि गुजर क्षत्रिय नहीं होते, जाट क्षत्रिय नहीं होते. I mean, our communities are destroyed by this low-level infighting about who's the greatest. Let's just assume that you were soldiers and kings and we were agricultural nomadists and pastoral. Let's just assume that. Even then, these guys in Haryana, they're all fighters. दिमाग तो वही है, दिमाग खराब है, सबका दिमाग थोड़ा खराब है. First time मैंने देखा है एक proper combative zone, जहाँ या तो verbal combat हो रहा है या फिर they're almost about to go to blows. And so, gradually through your friends as well, I was able to acquire a flavor of this land. A land that will welcome you, is very hospitable, but will fight back. And so, something inside me changed in this trip where I was able to use all my negotiation, all my aggression, all my, sort of like achieve this objective like it's conquest and leave. All those gifts, they emerged here. Because यहाँ पे मेरे को राजस्थान में छल कपट या फिर the diplomatic statecraft that you do in the major cities, it's all out in the open. It's all heart and it's all fights. So in that way, I really, really enjoyed the flavors of Rajasthan, and they differ from Jaipur to Pushkar to Udaipur to Jodhpur.
Right, there is a difference, right? Thanks you. Because even people in Bombay and stuff, I remember going to college where they were like, Rajasthan is all the same. And in good colleges, they're all dunes and no. Sorry, I cut you.
No. I mean, yeah, like that's what I'm saying. भाई आपको लगता होगा कि आप जयपुर गए हो, आपने आमेर फोर्ट देखा, आपने कुछ नहीं देखा. And your modus operandi is on foot. Mine was in a car and on foot.
Yeah, I call it 11 number ki gaadi.
11 number की गाड़ी क्यों?
Because दो pair is like number 11. No, sorry, a bad joke.
हाँ, no, it's fine. And so even Jaipur, I would have the vantage point that you gave me through the walks. Like आपकी walk पे आपने एक चीज़ बताई मेरे को कि हर गली के बाहर बोर्ड पे लिखा हुआ है कि किस बिरादरी की ये गली है.
Yeah, more or less.
आप कहीं पे भी जाओगे भारत में और आप ये करोगे दंगे हो जाएंगे. But they're all peacefully coexisting. जैसे एग्जाम्पल के लिए बताऊँ, मीनाओं की गली एक है, चूड़ी बनाने वाली की एक गली है, इसका ये स्टेपवेल है. I love that the city authorities or whoever preserves their heritage has marked these places in their original bizarre names in today's times. Right? Because one would assume that we are in Sector 87 or we are in
Thank you. Yeah.
Pushpa Park.
Yeah.
Like shit like that.
Yeah.
So the original names is a very interesting thing that I observed.
So it's actually, and thank you for bringing it up, because that actually brings me to the book that I'm working on, is on the old rastas of Jaipur.
Okay.
So Jaipur, of course, was this beautiful grand city that was built by Jai Singh. We're going back to the construction now. And it was divided into 9 blocks. Why 9 is because Jai Singh, we all know, was this astronomer, and at the time there were 9 planets in the Indian planetary system. So he wanted to keep himself and the palace and the deity of Vishnu right in the center, which represents
the sun.
The sun. You remember, chalo.
Of course, I mean.
And the other, of course, wards were around. And these wards are divided not according to, saying caste makes it sound very crass, but community-wise, and occupation-wise.
So what should I search? Jai Singh's 9 cities?
The 9 blocks or 9 planets.
Interesting.
So yeah, because it was 700 hectares, and he sort of wanted to make it. He followed the straight line principle, which is again a part of Vastu Shastra. So even when the European travelers were coming there, they were shocked and they refused to believe that an Indian or a group of Indians could have made this, and they instantly attributed, this was done by the Portuguese or this is done by that.
So just for context, I think there is it's more Vastu and I think less planets, because even though there are 9 planets in the zodiac,
Right.
वास्तु के अंदर कैसे होता है कि बीच में empty होता है. It's like they have this thing called a Vastu Purush. Either way, it is in sync with some kind of an Indian
No, absolutely.
system.
So some scholars say that, listen, there is no, people love to attribute, oh, this is the mandala that he was trying to make. Jai Singh was just read everything. And he was taking inspiration from everything. Wherever he could use Vastu, he was using it. But a lot of scholars, again, like what you're saying, is there wasn't any fixed idea that, oh, I'm going to keep it. He wanted to make a sort of Vedic-inspired city, so he drew from these different shastras. The Shilp Shastra, which is our art for basically art and design. And then Vastu is architecture and planning. But he didn't fix it. For example, 9 planets is one theory. The other one is Navnidhi, or the 9 houses of Kuber. Right? And he placed the occupations according to the occupations that would be involved in these 9 different treasure houses. So the fascinating part about Jaipur is it's not one-dimensional. You know, it's like an onion. The more you sort of peel off, the more layers comes out.
भरत, जब मैं उदयपुर में था,
आपको क्या comparison लगा? चलो, let me ask you this. Udaipur or Jaipur, if you had to choose in terms of architecture and layout and design.
in terms of getting from one place to the other, dude, Jaipur was a treat. Udaipur is a difficult city to get from one place to the other.
Now you know why the Mughals found it extremely hard to conquer. So land always plays a big part. And lots of people, and Udaipur and Jaipur have this sort of back and forth of Jaipur aligning with the Mughals at the time. But just think of being in an open field where you can easily be attacked. And so Man Singh and the Kachawas took the hard call. And they're still facing flack for it. And Jevrat also, I mean, on a very sort of friendly gesture, would always, kind of, for people from Udaipur would...
So for context, this is his friend who I recorded a small segment with. You'll see it in our series when it comes out. He would say कि अरे यार वो कछावास control
Jaipur
करते थे.
वाले.
He was saying Jaipur वाले control करते थे. हमने मेवाड़ ने जो करा है. But that's...
And credit to them, of course. Like that is why the Sisodias of Mewar have that distinction or have been given that pedestal of being the chief of the Rajputs. The Kachawa king will accept that. The Rathor king of Jodhpur will accept that. You give them their due, right? But again, there's no need to constantly put someone down to put yourself up. And that is a big thing in our narrative right now. It's happening between the Rajputs and the Marathas also, where, I mean, if you even say, well done, the Marathas, they'll be like, oh, but you Rajputs are like this. I mean, everyone has chink in the armor. Everyone has some ruler, everyone has worked for the Timurids, not the Mughals, but the Timurids. Everyone has worked for the British. It's ludicrous to kind of just talk about. And that's what, now you see that the British and these people came and exploited. You can see the differences that are, and we should sort of celebrate these differences, but not pick on each other. And that'll be the end of my
like
gyan.
if you've got 100, आपके पास अगर 100 ancestor, उनमें से एक तो चोर निकला होगा. मतलब मैं आपकी बात नहीं कर रहा, मैं कह रहा हूँ कोई भी इंसान जो देखता है, जिसको लगता है कि हमारी कास्ट, हमारा क्लैन सबसे सुपीरियर है, एक आदमी ऐसा होगा जो भागे. It's human nature.
Exactly. Including including things that you said even earlier that, so Kshatriyata was not really fixed. Different communities have picked up the sword and proved their Kshatriyata. So I really don't subscribe to this thing that, oh, the Rajputs are the Kshatriyas, the Sikhs. No, I mean, if a Raja Dahid, who was a Brahmin king who fought a battle against Muhammad bin Qasim, did perform the deeds of a Kshatriya, so he's as much a Kshatriya for me as a Raja Man or a Maharana Pratap. I mean, whether he lost or didn't, that's secondary.
Of course.
But it's the deed that matters, I think.
The reason I brought up Udaipur is because वहाँ पे ये मैंने पहली बार देखी ये चीज़. आई थॉट इसका मतलब कुछ और है कि वहाँ पे कोई पुल बना हुआ है, कोई और चीज़ है. वहाँ पे जगहें थी जिनका नाम था चांद पोल, ब्रह्मा पोल और सूर्य पोल नहीं था. लेकिन मैं अभी ये जयपुर का पढ़ रहा था. दिस यू वर सेइंग इट्स एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली स्प्लिट लाइक दैट. सो इट डज हैव सूर्य पोल एंड चांद पोल.
So every old city will have a Suraj pole and Chand pole because it just follows the basic principles of having a gate in the east and the west. Sorry that I'm constantly cutting you off.
No, that's okay. So that's what it means?
Basically, always. Whether you go to Jodhpur, whether you go to even... and a lot of Hindu cities would have this concept of Suraj and Chand always. When I was a child, I used to foolishly think that the moon rises in the west and sets in the east, and that's why, no. A friend of mine, shout out to Shivdat, who is a cousin of Jay's, and who's like a naturally born sort of naturalist in a way that, he doesn't know only about trees and plants, he'll know about the soil.
This should be a contact in Jaisalmer had we gone there.
Well, which one?
Shivdat, you said no?
From Jodhpur, basically.
From Jodhpur.
Yeah, he lives out of his village. And so he explained to me, in fact, called me up once when I still was making this mistake, that please rectify it. Just, I think, on the 15 days of the rising moon, on the second day, on the western side, you see the moon for about 10-15 minutes. And that's why, because of that sort of attribution, you've given the western gate the Chand Pole tag.
So 1700 की बात है roughly, and Jai Singh too is now setting out to expand away from his ancestral capital.
No, he's still fighting. Aurangzeb is troubling him now, is making him go from pillar to post, fight in different wars he doesn't want. The Rajputs had sort of lost interest with the Mughals at the time and didn't want to. So they were playing false ally. You know, they were saying, yeah, we'll come, and then would delay it. Say, oh, we're getting married, so we'll come next year. So Jai Singh continues this. And by the time, and of course then Aurangzeb forces, he goes and proves himself in the Battle of Khelna. But he always, I feel his spirit was always in academia, you know, in mathematics, in astronomy, in science. And he was just sort of a scientist stuck in a soldier's body. And so he was always looking for opportunities, but Aurangzeb, being the man he was, wasn't really open to these developments. But when his later sort of... so Aurangzeb dies, right? And Jai Singh makes this mistake of supporting the losing side, right? And if I'm not sure, Bahadur Shah the first becomes Mughal emperor after that. And he's pissed off with Jai Singh. And he tells him, I am going to dethrone you. Gets his younger brother, who was called Vijay Singh, makes him the king of Amber, takes over Amber, names it Mominabad. And Jai Singh is again running from pillar to post, trying to win it back. And this is when the last Rajput alliance happened, when the Maharana of Mewar sort of greets Jai Singh. He lands up in Udaipur and requests him. At the same time, Jodhpur was also taken over, because during Aurangzeb's time, again, there was a lot of back and forth. If you remember of Maharaja Jaswant Singh fighting against Aurangzeb in different capacities. And Durgadas, and of course, after Jaswant Singh dies, Aurangzeb takes total control over Jodhpur, changes its name, takes its prince, tries to convert him into Islam, and then rises this hero called Durgadas Rathore, who basically saves the kingdom, smuggles the prince out. Anyway, long story short, the king of Jaipur and the king of Jodhpur find themselves in the court of the Maharana of Mewar, and they come up with this sort of alliance of marrying each other's sisters and daughters to each other, and fighting against Bahadur Shah. And so they do that, they form an alliance, they win back Jaipur, they win back Jodhpur. Bahadur Shah comes and apologizes because he realizes he can't mess with an allied.
So Udaipur अकेला अभी independent है, Jodhpur, Jaipur जा चुके हैं. They all combine forces once again as Hindu Rajput kings and win it back.
Yeah, गया नहीं है, but he's Aurangzeb places the puppet king, which is Jai Singh's half brother. Yeah,
it's gone.
More or less gone. So I feel also one of the reasons why Jai Singh wanted to build this city is because he felt that the sacred city of Amber, or the sacred town, was kind of violated by the Mughals coming there and taking total control over it. And Jai Singh and Jaipur was this sort of fresh, new metropolis that he was constantly imagining. So people say Jaipur was built in 1727, but the story of Jaipur actually starts with Aurangzeb's death. And he's constantly then sort of ideating, talking to different people, speaking to his council. He had a brilliant council of architects, scientists, priests, people around him, planners. And he had probably the most sort of vast library, they say, which also has a very interesting story connected to it. But so Jai Singh was this nerd almost, where he was collecting maps and cities, city plans and books and manuscripts. And then he wanted to create this city as, you know, as this showpiece to the world about how cultured the Kachawas were. Right? And that's why today also, if you see Jaipur's walls, they look beautiful and very grand, but one cannon shot and it'll all crumble because it's not stone, it's all rubble and with plaster on top. So they're not very
aesthetic city. It's not a fortified city like Amber is.
I hate admitting it, but yeah, it's not got the stone slabs that an Amber or a Mehrangarh would.
So one thing that I noticed on the walks with you कि बहुत सारे पुराने घरों के बाहर लोगों के नाम लिखे होते हैं.
Right.
Strange symbols that, or sometimes sigils or symbols or crests.
Right.
Now one will see these in, of course, Game of Thrones. One will see these जब आप पुराने ये medieval knights वगैरह कोई medieval घरों को देखते हो कि ये House of Bolton है या House of जो भी और कुछ है, you will see it. But I'm not sure how old this lineage is, how old this dates back. What's that? What's that significance of the symbols outside Jaipur's houses?
So you'll see a lot of symbols of the sun. And that's because the Jaipur Kachawas claim descent from Surya Dev, or the sun god. And they've sort of used that symbolism in the city because the city had 7 gates. If you remember, we had spoken about the thing also that 7 was this number that was normally attributed to Surya Dev. Because wherever you see him on a chariot with 7 horses.
Right.
Now, that basically translates to Surya Dev representing the sun. And the chariot is almost like a prism, and the 7 horses are the 7 colors you see in the rainbow. Now, Jai Singh wanted to use that, his ancestor, in a way, and so he makes a beautiful Surya temple on top of a hill, and then he makes 7 gates as sort of a nod to his supposed ancestor. Now, of course, we can't prove it, but in the Kachawa genealogy, you have Suryadev as one of the ancestors. And so Suryavanshi was a thing, so much so that even Art Deco symbols in the city, and we can talk about Art Deco if we do get time. Art Deco symbols were sort of related to the sun and Surya Dev and Suraj. But you'll see a lot of symbols of the sun everywhere. I mean, even people who weren't directly linked or related to the Kachawas would just do it as homage to the king. You know, if the king would drive past or ride past, he'd see it, he'd feel happy. So the sun is a motif that you'll see almost all over Jaipur, everywhere.
Yeah. One of the things we discussed, और मैंने आपको बोला था कि पहले I had spoken to Tanuja Kothiyal and मैंने उसका podcast करा था कुछ साल पहले जो कभी आ नहीं पाया, nomadic narratives where Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi, Yaduvanshi, I don't know what, किसी भी तरह का कोई वंश है जो is the idea that at some point she goes on to make this claim that in Rajputana and the Rajput caste that we know today, at some point it was up for grabs for everyone in the region. Any band of enterprising men could pillage a fort, उस पे कब्जा करके, and then eventually to say that they belong, because आप commoner तो, अगर आप commoner हो, आप कैसे बोल सकते हो?
बिल्कुल.
They would say कि मैं इसका descendant हूँ, मैं इसका वंशज हूँ. आज भी जो चीज़ चल रही है भारत के अंदर, लोग बदतमीजी करते हैं, बोलते हैं मैं इसका वंशज हूँ, हमारे को इज्जत दो, right? It's been happening for
Actually, yeah.
years.
Yeah.
It's been happening in India for centuries. But this, I am so and so, so you give me respect, and I am like in Malana. They have those guys. They think they're fucking Alexander ke descendants.
That's crazy.
Right? Like it's just absurd what
Yeah.
people will do. And some of these lineages can generally be traced back. But this is the problem. This is the contention of self-embellishment, of the reliability and unreliability of oral history, and what it means for who gets to be known in history and who's forgotten, right? ये सब बातें इसमें आ जाती हैं. So when it comes to this Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi, Yaduvanshi, you had some interesting things to say about how certain Rajput Gotras emerged.
Right.
You know, like you yourself are a Jadon.
Yeah, Jadon, as we call it.
Yeah, you're
Jadon,
you're a Rajput Yadav.
No, so if you have to say I'm part of I'm a Chandravansh. Within the Chandravansh, there are different clans like the Puruvansh, and there's Kuruvansh, and there's Pandavansh,
Okay.
who claim descent from one of the Pandavas. I belong to this. The Jadons are part of the Yaduvansh, whose, of course, ancestor was this.
Krishna, Mahabharat mein.
So Krishna Bhagwan was born into the Yadu clan. He didn't found the clan, right? He had ancestors who came before him, whether that's Chandra, Som, Yadu. Now, there's a long list.
Right.
So the Yaduvanshis, of course, claimed to fame at the time, and our sort of most prominent ancestor was Krishna.
Right.
And from the Yaduvanshis, there were different branches that came out. So the Bhatis of Jaisalmer are also from the Yaduvanshi clan. They still write Yadav
Sorry,
Bhati.
just 1 second.
Yeah.
You're a Yadav Bhati.
No, I'm a Jadon or a
You're a Yadav.
Yadav. It depends how you take it, yeah.
Okay. So,
Or a Yadav Rajput, as we say it. So the entire story is, if I have to...
yeah.
And
Just 1 sec. I just wanted to ask you. Yaar, Bhati to... this one woman told me she's a... Kothiyal, she said कि उसका कोई एक जानकार वो भाटी था, and Bhatis apparently like Chaudhary and Singh is used in the north.
Yeah.
It's a normal blanket surname.
Right.
So Bhati bhi is like many castes at the same time.
No, so I mean originally, so I'll tell you how the many castes would come. So originally, Bhati was a king or a prince who belonged to the Yadu or the Yadav clan, who was towards Jaisalmer and basically the northwest region, right? Because he was someone of prominence, his descendants started using the Bhati surname. But if you still ask any historian or any of the Jaisalmer Bhatis, what is the name of your dynasty? Most of them will say Yadav Bhati or Yadu Bhati, correct? Now what would happen is that even within the Bhatis or even within all the princely sort of lines, there would be lots of people who would not sort of take part in war or battle. Maybe they were more inclined towards farming, right? Maybe they were inclined more towards animal husbandry, or maybe they were more inclined towards writing or bards or poetry or music. Now, any person who would change their occupation at the time, so if you were, suppose I am Rao Bhati, I have 5 children. 3 of those children are exactly like me, warriors, but 2 are sort of, you can see that there is different interests, right? And so these children would be married to people of those communities. So they would, and then they would take on, the Bhati name would still remain because they are of the same blood, right? But they would start, and then slowly their, as you say, jati or their community or their caste would change. The same thing has happened with, have you heard of Bharatpur, which is this princely state in Rajasthan again?
My father's Nanaji was one of the soldiers in the Bharatpur King's army.
Oh, wow. All right. Great history of, and there's a huge,
I've heard that it's a very criminal area even nowadays.
all border areas, I feel, yeah, you know, all between states, and Rajasthan, UP, Haryana ka border, it's almost like a sangam of the 3 states. What do you expect? I mean, and the landscape is the Chambal area and stuff like that.
Oh, that's where the Chambal area is?
Yeah, parts of Dholpur, Bharatpur, Karoli.
Okay.
So yeah, so Bharatpur in fact claimed to be Jadons, and what happened is one of the prince married or fell in love with a Jat lady. And so, and I really don't subscribe to it, but because at the time they couldn't, once you marry a Jat lady, the other Rajput brethren wouldn't allow you, so your children were Jats, and today they're considered to be almost the chief of the Jats. But there is a, yeah, I mean, this is under...
The Jadon last name is a Jat last name, no?
No, it's not. But if you ask them who were your ancestors, they'll say, "Hum log Jadon Rajput se nikle." Correct? Like how the Patiala and there are a lot of Sikh kingdoms that actually claim descent from Rajputs. The Bhattis are what? Bhatis. Right? In Punjabi...
Jats and Jats, yeah.
In Punjabi language, you reduce. So Gadi becomes Gaddi. Bhati becomes Bhatti.
Jat becomes Jat.
Jat.
Sure, yeah.
So it's very interesting to study all of this. You know, there's good, bad. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody by saying someone was
Too late for that
now.
now. You're on Dostcast.
But so I mean, so that was the case where, but also there was something called Sanskritization, or I mean, if you have to be really specific, there are articles written on it called Rajputization, right? Where certain communities that were not prominent or not very sort of powerful at the time, when they did reach a stage of power, land holding, what is the next step, right? If you just think of Maslow's theory of needs, once you reach your different needs, then you want something better. So what is the next once you are established, money is taken care of, land?
Self-actualization?
Is that you want to claim descent from a great lineage. You know, you should also have that. It's the growth.
But they can't go to sannyas, so they have to go to the opposite end, which is the highest of the high.
Yeah. So you know, people, for example, the Ahir community, which is also a very brave community. There were, I mean, Rewari was one of the old princely sort of states. Actually, in the 1920s, had this sammelan where they all decided to honor Krishna. And this wasn't done to spite any community or the Rajputs, but to honor Krishna and to be sort of linked to the Yaduvanshis. They wanted to be part of the entire community. And so they started writing Yadav. And according to my, and this story was told to me when I was a child almost. And at the time, the Yadav Rajputs wanted to dissociate, because there was always this thing of being difference, right? I mean, unity in diversity and all that.
Sure.
So the Yadavs started writing Jadon, because Yadav and Jadon were interchangeable in the Braj language, like Yamuna, Jamuna.
Correct.
Right? So Jadon became this thing for, if you were from the Rajput community, aap Jadon ho. And Yadav jo likhne lag gaya, you automatically associate it from being from the Ahir community. And the Ahirs have their explanation for it, saying that Nand Baba, right? Vasudev and Devki were Krishna's parents, but the foster parents were Nand Baba and Yashoda Ma. And so they were from the Ahir community because they were, and they brought up Krishna. And so they wanted to have this sort of linkage to the Yaduvanshi thing, because I mean, it's self-actualization, it's growth of an individual. And
jab Gulal picture aayi thi, did it mess up relations amongst your Rajput friends, did it actually have? Because I remember अभी एक दो ऐसी पिक्चरें आई हैं, जैसे एक आया था, शो आया था बेकार सा, ये पिक्चर आई थी किसी की, जिला गाजियाबाद,
Right.
which is about the Western UP gangs of Gujars. Several Gujars I know went drove to watch the film. हमारी community की बात है. Just the other day, I had Abhijit Chavda on, who's a famous
Oh yeah.
geopolitical commentator, great friend of mine. And now he is Chavda. Now he is a Kshatriya.
Which is an old Rajput clan. Yeah. Chavdas are. I mean, there's still a state in Gujarat.
Sorry, I forgot. He said he was a Rajput from Gujarat. That's what he said.
And they ruled parts of Rajasthan, Bhinmal and all. Sorry.
I did not know. Now I have to treat him with more respect.
I'd love to meet him though. Yeah, he's a very interesting man.
Yeah, he's in Mumbai. Whenever you're there, happy to make you meet him. So क्या हुआ कि I was getting this message from this dude, some random number. I never pick up random numbers. This one day I did. He said आपके यहाँ पे एक अभिजीत राठौड़ आए हैं, उन्होंने कुछ बोला है, कुछ बोला है, क्या बोला पता नहीं क्या बात कर रहा है. मैंने उसको रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं किया, पागल है. और मैंने कहा मैंने करा ही नहीं ये पॉडकास्ट अभिजीत राठौड़ का. So then he discovered, I think, that Chavda was Rajput.
Yeah.
So in his simpleton village casteist mind, he thought कि राजपूतों की बात आगे हो रही है. He said मेरे गांव के गुजर को बुलाओ ताकि वो टक्कर दे सके. क्या बात कर रहे हैं, हम जियोपॉलिटिक्स की बातें कर रहे हैं.
Yeah.
But it serves to prove that this mess, you see the beauty of it, I can see the beauty of it, but I also see the other side, where like in UP, you've got Rajputs and Gujars fighting over Raja Mihir Bhoj.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rajasthan has its own set of problems with the intercaste dynamics and still
every place.
छोटा मोटा oppression, ये सब चीजें. It's also caused these micro histories and these micro origin stories to sprout up so much in every place. But even now, this Sanskritization, this Rajputization doesn't stop to the point where can we all relate to each other as human beings anymore? Or is it really, really a consequence of the fact that Rajasthan perhaps has the most amount of active clans or the most amount of written history?
See, every place has its sort of caste clashes and stuff like that. Rajasthan has its fair share. Of course, in Rajasthan, it's always been known to have these strong princely states. And because of that, the Rajput culture has sort of maintained itself, although there are Rajputs all the way, like I was saying, from Himachal to Bihar to Odisha. But I feel, like you said, I sort of like to celebrate these things, but it also comes from a certain level of privilege because I really don't live in these rural areas. And for me, I look at it as a third person because I am not a Rajput who owns a fort that's living in a village that has to, I look at it purely from a sort of pseudo-academic, at least my sense of academics that I want to work on because over the years, whether living in urban or rural, I've realized that there has been this sort of distortion of Rajputs being shown in a certain light. Of course, there are good and bad, and I'm fascinated by almost every community, and I am trying to study it. I have Jat relatives, and I have Gujar relatives as well, and of different types. So, of course, the world is changing, but I think what makes India, what makes Rajasthan, all of us really special is this sort of community system where if we just started celebrating it rather than thinking who is better, I totally, it's happening with the Rajputs and the Marathas right now online, right? Where, now that the Marathas, and of course it's great, we want more movies on the Marathas and on their heroes, on Shivaji Maharaj and Sambhaji Maharaj. But I think you don't need to put down one community to sort of elevate the other, right? This mentality I haven't really understood, and you've just addressed it. This whole thing of, we are better, I'm better, and if you just sort of
the other community
exactly
to revive your own history,
right.
It cannot come independently without othering them. I want to ask you something about Jaipur houses. So, कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है कि मैं किसी बढ़िया जगह पे जाता हूँ, I take a hike, or I find myself in a mythical place, which is predates my era, which is only 28 years. But
what happened today with us? Looking for Surajkund.
Surajkund क्या है?
Is a different
region है. साला कोई एक ऐसा एक जगह है Surajkund.
And what a monument! It exceeded. I thought it'd be a tiny little kund, tuta-puta with little kachra. Gosh,
amphitheater.
Mammoth.
I'm sure they must have done some legendary, I don't know.
यज्ञ भी होते थे इन कुंडों में.
यज्ञ भी होते थे कुंडों में.
कुंडों में यज्ञ भी होते थे, घी डलता था.
But how would you do it with the...
You would clean it then later on. So there were yagya kunds, but lots of these water tanks would also have yagyas, you know.
What's a baradari?
So a baradari is baradari, so literally
Baradari.
bara and dari, it's basically entrances. So there would be 4 entrances, 4 sides that will be open.
Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
guys mispronounced biradari.
No, baradari is it's a Persianate term which basically means, imagine an open pavilion, but with 4 sides open. So there'll be 12 entrances, right? So if you have, so think of a room, think of this table as a room. It has 4 sides. Every side has 3 arches. So how many sort of entrances are there? Bara. So baradari again. Then it became a sort of collective blanket term for any structure that has certain sides open and stuff.
Or, so, I played Civilization 6 a lot
Oh wow.
on my iPad, which has told me a little bit about ये चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य के एम्पायर के अंदर उसके पास स्पेशल टूल होता है. It's just a strategy game for context.
I'd love to play it. I didn't know about this. The last one I played was Age of Empires, man. That was
Oh,
like,
Civilization 6 is so good.
It's brilliant, yeah.
So good. I'm trapped in a war with this African king and I have moved my troops all across. I have like मैंने क्या 18 शहर है मेरे पास. I've completely decimated the Georgian Empire. I am sort of not in so good terms with like these क्या कहते हैं South Americans, these Aztecs. I'm having a bit of problems with this expansionist empire from Persia. There's a lot of problems, but like I am winning in terms of military strength.
Right.
So military strength, cultural
you
strength.
have the elephants, right? No.
I have the elephants, yes, but I'm in a different era. So you
But,
can, it's like you can choose what weapons you get in different eras, and it's a cultural victory, as in like you have the best
Equipment,
artistic pieces. No, artistic pieces, best monuments.
Oh wow.
Diplomatic victory is how well your suzerains and your diplomats are treated, and if you have open borders and all that jazz.
So it's not only military based, that means.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
brilliant, yeah.
a full thing. But in that, Chandragupta Maurya's like main sort of weapon,
Yeah.
or his special ability is the stepwells. So he is known for having these he's got military might, but वो
Yeah.
stepwell से अपने शहर को पाल पाता है अच्छी तरह से. So आपका तो खुद का पेज है stepwell,
Stepwell country, yeah.
Stepwell country. ये stepwells exactly करते क्या हैं?
So Stepwells, forget Chandragupta Maurya. I mean, we've all heard and seen the excavation that the ESI has been doing, and they've been finding water tanks, stepwells, water systems in those excavated cities. So water was basically not only rivers and lakes, but the harvest and the management of waters was something that was imbibed in our DNA. It wasn't taught to people. Villagers, from little boy to old man or old woman, would understand how water worked and how to treat water, right? So, I mean, and I call it Stepwell country because you won't find these, I call them water monuments, anywhere else in the world. You only find them in the Indian subcontinent. And so, sadly, because of our tube wells and boring and pipelines and stuff, we've ditched stepwells and like they say, I mean, people use this metaphor for Jaipur and Amber, but almost like how a snake sheds its skin and puts on a new skin. We've abandoned the old skin completely, which were the old stepwells and wells. I mean, forget stepwells. A normal well in Jaipur, in the old city, I haven't even found one that's functional. They all are either dry or full of garbage. Because we're so used to getting pipelined water right to our houses that we've ditched the
पर और कौन सी
system
country में
completely.
well चलता होगा?
Wells तो हर जगह चलते हैं, right? Well is a very simple concept, but how do
No,
you...
like in contemporary times, which other country would have a well that's functional? I think
So many
everybody
people,
does
I mean,
wells.
even outside, I mean, you really don't need to dig deep. I mean, how do you get water? Chalo, let me ask you that, which is the
No,
basic...
I'm saying in modern life, many cities are used to pipeline water and like all of that jazz. They don't. No one's actually going to go use. मैं बाल्टी से वो well से निकाल रहा हूँ सामान.
हाँ, बिल्कुल. But the system and understanding... So when you had these wells and stepwells, you could understand the value of water. Right? So what are these pipelines doing, whether in international or national, is they are digging deep into the ground. They are ruining the groundwater level completely. They're transferring water from 30, 40, 60 kilometers, which is a waste of money and resources. It's depleting the water needs of that area because they have to supply water to a city. And so it's not a sustainable way to grow at all. I mean, you see places like Gurgaon. Forget about Gurgaon and places. Rajasthan, which is known to protect these systems, is slowly sort of forgetting how... I mean, I was doing a project in Shekhawati and we were working on a well, right? And a well is a very simple thing. You think someone out there would know how to repair it. We couldn't find one person who was there to repair it. Forget about creating or digging a well. सबको बस boring करना है, get it in their boleros, dig deep into the ground 300, 400, 600 feet and keep खींचोing water from there till it totally goes dry, then you go to the next place. So it's not really sustainable in a way. We've forgotten how to harvest or catch rainwater.
नहीं तो ये स्टेपवेल में लाइक हम तो जब गए थे जोधपुर में, when I met your brother there and like हम वहाँ गए छलांग लगाने के लिए, काफ़ी गहरा है वो,
काफ़ी गहरा है.
तो उसको आज कैसे यूज़ करेंगे? हाउ विल वी रिवाइव दिस स्टेपवेल टू यूज टुडे?
So, I mean, it's actually not a sort of collective solution that we can give because every region is different. So, every stepwell literally is different because it's based on its, not only on the region and its architecture, but according to the geological sort of hydrogeological table, which is subterranean and underground, right? So, कोई area में actually कोई उसका पानी खारा हो गया होगा, which you can't use, right? Maybe in another it went completely dry. So, you can't use it, but you can still sort of readapt the use of these stepwells and make it something else.
So you can't actually, this water is not...
No, I'm talking about one or two examples. Turji ka Jhalra or Jodhpur has basically got connected, a large part of it, to the Indira Gandhi or the Ganga Canal, as we call it. Right?
How is that connected?
Now, they created canals, right? It used to come till Bikaner. Now they've pulled another canal that transports water to Jodhpur
This
city.
Turji ka Jhalra, which is about, जिसपे हमने, like we went there and that has pipes going into Bikaner.
No, that basically, so what happens is when you transport water from an area outside canal, the groundwater, the table keeps increasing. We are getting good rainfall year after year. So since I have been studying stepwells for the last 3-4 years, we've had such good rainfalls that some stepwells are just not visible because they are all
covered in water.
And that was the main purpose also as tanks, right? They were all made in places where water would collect.
So these are basically ancient water tanks is what I'm asking.
Ancient. So without confusing you too much, even like a step well is different to a stepped tank. A step tank is a kund, right? And a step well is a bauli, what we say.
करते क्या थे लोग इसका?
उसका पानी कहाँ से आता था? So पानी, if you were connected to a step well, that means water is coming from the ground, it's clean, right? So you could use it for drinking purposes and cooking purposes. Tanks, which were always mostly next to temples. So when we were discussing with Samar today that, there must have been a Surya temple around. These tanks were also used for cleaning purposes. When you go, you purify yourself, clean, wash hands, then get into the temple, right? Then you use it for domestic purposes. Then there are some stepwells that were famous that, if you wash clothes in this certain stepwell, the water has a certain, like your Gandak ki Bauli out here, there's one in Mehroli, right? The sulfur content was so much so that it was almost very good for the skin. So that's why each stepwell was a unique monument in itself. It's very hard to say, all the stepwells went bad because of this particular reason.
Throughout the era?
As clean as, better than our homes, I think.
यार हमारे को वो इतना टॉन्ट कर रहे थे वहाँ के आसपास के लोग, गंदा पानी है उसका जोधपुर का. हम जब अंदर गए, it was top tier.
Yeah,
it was top tier.
It's, as they say, haters will hate. There'll always be some people who try and spook you as a tourist that वहाँ मत जाओ.
Kai Wai thi, but no.
If you see Turji Jhalra, there's a lady called Victoria Lautman, who is this American journalist who comes to see stepwells, gets fascinated by it, writes a book on it. Right? She showed me a picture of Turji ka Jhalra before it was revived or whatever. It was a garbage dump. You didn't know what was beneath it. And when they cleaned it, this beautiful sort of geometric inverted pyramid stepwell came into it.
Wait, it was a dump?
It was a dump.
Jodhpur ka Turji ka Jhalra was
a dump completely.
God damn it.
I'll send you the picture. Full of garbage and stuff like that,
I hope I was not too close to the restoration time.
The residents, no, it's happened 10-15 years ago.
Achha.
Even the residents around weren't aware that, there'll be something of that depth. And when they cleaned it, now it's changed. You've been to the Stepwell Square, as you call it, right?
Kaun se Stepwell Squares?
The Stepwell Square is basically Turji ka Jhalra and Ras Haveli, and it's sort of cleaned up, and you'll see a lot of tourists hanging around there. So I usually when I give presentations, I treat that as one of these success stories of reviving a place. You can't only go and clean the area, pani dal do. It has to be revived in a way because, like you said, people are getting water, whether sustainable or not, to their houses. So how do you make this place culturally relevant also? Which moves beyond its function. So now they have galleries out there. Yeah. They have exhibitions out there. They have music events out there. It is a little spot where people can come and sit. And Turji, very interestingly now, just if I can digress, is just a corruption of the word Tomar, which is your Tomar Anangpalji, Surajpalji, who made...
#save Anangpur.
So clearly the Tomars were doing very good work when it came to stepwells. And another very interesting thing in Jodhpur, you'll see that a lot of the stepwells, maybe more than 50%, were commissioned by women. Turji ka Jalra was Tawarji, who was a lady, right? There's a
Which is a last name in Gujars. Tawar is a...
is also, so again it could come back
Hey,
to that.
Bhagwan, it's all fucking connected. God
Yeah.
damn it. Yes, you know...
And
so-
Tawar is actually a branch of Tomar, right? Tomar Tawar, like Chauhan is a branch of Chahamanas.
Or Chavan in Maharashtra.
It's become Chavan, and Jadons ka Jadhav ho gaya wahan.
One of the problems is that...
It's very interesting at that.
It's interesting, but it all comes back to just how connected we all are in this big northwest of this country. मतलब क्या बोलूँगा आपका राजस्थान, हरियाणा, UP, Punjab is a little different,
Yeah.
but even parts of Maharashtra and Gujarat, we're all so connected and so clannish. We don't seem to recognize it unless we speak to each other, and then we're like, अरे हम यहाँ पे ये, हम यहाँ पे ये, हम यहाँ पे ये. It's like, they had this old Aryan invasion theory, this whole out of Asia migration stuff. Someone even told me as far as कि हम गुजर राजस्थान से आए हैं. I was like, अच्छा. I mean, now it makes sense. That perhaps some of the Tomars from there became Tamars here.
It's very hard. I mean, forget about India. It's very hard since the Northwest and even Central Asia and all, we're all one landmass, right? It's not a different continent. So there has been a lot of exchange. I mean, I really follow and read this person, this lawyer called J.Sai Deepak, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you speak to him, and I've met people from the Baltic countries who claim the same, it's impossible to ignore the spattering of Sanskrit that you get out there. So the cultural influence and the exchange of ideas. People keep saying that, I try and study swords myself. So people say, ye sword kahan se aaya, ye language, ye food. I mean, anyone who stakes claim and says, ye yahan se aaya, I'd say is basically making an educated guess. It's very hard to say that, to trace, because this was a constant flow of ideas, of people, of culture that was happening between the places. So forget about, we are probably closer, Rajasthan, Punjab, UP, MP, this belt is extremely close, but it doesn't stop to that. For example, now I'm going back to Rajput history. The Rathors claim descent from this dynasty called the Rashtrakutas, who actually come from this place called Manyakhet, which is in North Karnataka. In fact, their main deity, Nagnechi Mata, is actually from Karnataka. Unki Kul Devi jo bolte, if you've heard of the word.
Bhagwan, it's all jumbled. I thought the migration would happen from Central Asia and here. Now they've come in.
The Rathors have come, not...
तो फिर क्या Dravidian और क्या North Indian Aryan?
I really don't... Dravid basically means land that's Dravid, right? Covered three sides by sea. That's literally there's no sort of ethnographic or,
Dravidian is a regional identity that is formed by the fact that usko
it's like Sarvato Bhadra I told, it's a structure, right? Dravid is that land, any land. So even Africa at some point can be called Dravid because it's...
भाई जैसे हम बोलते हैं Lagoon Peninsula Island, अगर उनके हिंदी नाम या संस्कृत नाम होते तो लोग उसको रीजन का बना लेते हैं. पंजाब का पंजाबी बन जाता है. So Dravid then becomes an ethnicity.
Although Punjab, I was doing a little research right now. Ab comes from Arab and Persia. Doab, Punjab, right? But because our northwestern, again, that comes back to the exchange of words.
I have to get you back for many more parts.
Oh, yeah.
I think your history runs deeper than just Rajasthan.
Oh, but it's just pure nerd behavior that I'm doing. But for example, we keep hearing this word sahab, right? And we hear this word sa, right? If you come to Rajasthan, are sa, mamo sa, kako sa. Sa is again an abranch or a short form of sahib, which again has Arab roots. Ji is a very sort of Indian Sanskritized, which means Jivan. That means everyone is Ji because you're assigning you're saying they're a living being. Jeev hai wo. So Ji comes from that. But, in Rajasthan, if you tell any Rajasthani that, they'll think that Sa is as localized as ever. Correct? So it's very hard. So I find it very funny when people say, like even certain architect, and I'm not an architect, but people say, you Indians didn't have the pure arch, if you've heard of, right? The curved arch that is there.
हमारे यहाँ वो temple बन जाता है ऐसे.
हाँ, tribuated है, मतलब more squarish. But there are certain people who say that, in Chittor, there are instances of the pure arch being there. Okay, it wasn't popular, but that doesn't mean that it didn't exist at all, right? Then some people say, no, Chittor was actually taken between the Sisodias and the... Do you know that Chittor wasn't built by the Sisodias, wasn't built by Maharana Pratap's dynasty, right? The Mauryas, if you remember, Chandragupta Mauryas from the east had trickled down, and there was a certain clan within the Rajputs called the Mauris. And so Chitragupt Mauri which people assume to be descended from the Mauryas. And Chitragupt gives the name to Chitrakoot, which then becomes Chittor, right? So it was actually, so some people say the Arabs actually held it for a few months, right? And at that time they built these structures. But I mean, that debate is out there, but I don't subscribe to the fact that they say, oh, you Indians didn't have this and you Indians didn't have that. Or even the fact that Sahab actually comes, or Ab, actually has roots from the Middle East. I mean, it's as factual as we can. Maybe later on some new evidence comes along. And that's why we were saying it's very hard to have strong, and I'm not a historian and I'm a student, because history is also evolving in a way, right?
One of the problems with this revisionist history is that they're actually gonna, ये लोग क्या करेंगे ना, the way it's going, as much as I am a Hindu, I also feel like इतना कर देंगे ना कि जो essential parts है ना context के, उसको उड़ा देंगे. And जो हमारे को fears आ जा रहे हैं ना, कि ये essential contextual history that the one that you and I have grown up with is going to be gone.
Yeah.
I'm sure even it's like fucking Inception, that even people far back in the days would also say the same about history, their history being removed. They would say कि अरे यार नया राजा आया है, बहनचोद हिस्ट्री पलट देगा, रिविजन हो जाएगी हिस्ट्री की, this will be forgotten. It's like this history is such an interesting constant loop. आप revision करते हो, and then some people are like, but this is important.
Yeah.
And then eventually what happens is some records go away forever and it's lost to time. Information is lost to time forever.
Yeah.
So I feel like these important contexts, this interconnectedness, may go missing with the way we're only heading to, rename our cities in one way. As much as I'm all for, क्या कहते हैं, this Hindu Renaissance, this awakening, I think you have to attribute the mystery that is Asia. अगर हम Central Asia से वहाँ पे आए, same landmass है. Contributions from outside are important as well, to understand that it, if anything, makes you appreciate your history and also enables the residents of that set place to think about migration, to be more global. Because how else do you migrate after you've acquired money, resource, a visa? You start making connections.
Yeah.
आप बोलते हो कि हाँ ये gypsies हैं, ये भी Indians हैं, or some other connection.
Yeah.
And if those connections are severed by this constant rewriting of history, I think one will have to look elsewhere to find, how am I related to this person 640 kilometers away from me outside my country borders? You can't.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, that I completely agree with you. As Indic as we are, you don't want any whitewashing of history to happen on either side. Indians and Indic thought was always very absorbing in a way. And I mean, there was this beautiful podcast that I watched recently. I think you know Kushal Mehra also, and he was on Akash Singh's. Akash Singh is this comedian,
correct,
right? Indian guy. I didn't know who was also a Rajput, by the way. Said, I'm UP ke, I'm Uttar Pradeshi and stuff, but very interesting. But married to a Sikh lady out there. But Kushal says that India was constantly absorbing. That is what made us. So we had, imagine, 1 foot on tradition and culture and orthodox thought and principles, and the other foot was constantly, imagine, just rotating and absorbing everything we could. And that's one of the main reasons we've survived as a civilization, where the Egyptians and the Mayans and the Mizo and the Aztec and the Chinese, everyone has collapsed in a ways because we had this special sort of way of keeping hold of our traditions without being shut off to the entire world, and also absorbing things that we thought were great. Today, we are sort of forgetting everything that was Indian and absorbing everything that is Western completely, and that too, not the best practices from the West either. So, somewhere down the line, narrative comes into play. Of course, right now we're in that trajectory of the country being this sort of nationalistic, but I feel in that process, like what you were saying, we shouldn't, it is almost, if we go to the extreme, it's damaging Hindutva, because Hindutva was what? The essence of Hinduism, right?
Of course.
And so Hindutva meant that we would absorb everyone, we would accept everyone, while maintaining a certain base of the Indic civilization. So this extremeness that's happening is actually counterproductive to Hindutva, but I think in the whole race of, being on the top and... It's a very complex topic to just sort of summarize in one day, I think.
If you think about it, one has to, if you want to talk about poetry, aapko kitne sare, I don't know the names, for every Batalvi or whatever Hindi author you have the the Rumis and everyone else.
course,
बहुत
yeah.
सारे ऐसे लोग हैं
Yeah.
जो are almost intermeshed with the poems that emerged from जब Mughals यहाँ पे राज कर रहे थे. I mean, you can do it. In a way, it comes back to the whole thing that who are you the descendants of? Well, the easiest way to do that is to clear the path from whatever history is inconvenient.
Right.
Because as much as it's important for national fervor to recognize we were heroic and historically awesome and courageous back then, I think some of the other countries actually recognize their faults as well, right? Like, हमारे पास ये दिक्कत हो गई थी, ये कमी हो गई थी. One should not be blinded to history. If anything, history should humble you and then make you proud.
Yeah.
If it's blowing up your chest, we are awesome, you're bound to make mistakes. And we know what happens to civilization. We've been able to survive as a civilization for so long precisely because of this absorbing quality, which, like you said, maintains that baseline. If all that is left is the baseline,
Right.
then we, in quote unquote, shut off cultural trade. And
Right.
we want to trade cultures.
Exactly.
आप आए राजस्थान, अब तो स्टेट्स की बात करते हैं. आप मेरे स्टेट में आए, मेरी भी स्टेट नहीं है ना, राजस्थान आपकी स्टेट है. वी नेवर नो किसकी स्टेट है, राइट? और आपने बोला यहाँ पे कुंड है, हमने कुंड देखा जाके, वाह, मैंने अपनी स्टेट के बारे में कुछ सीखा. I came to your state. It's like the spices and the gold is gone,
Yeah.
but the realm of ideas remains. And you want that across the globe. You know, if anything, history should be a dialogue with your past and the man sitting 1,000 kilometers from you who might have something in common with you.
Yeah.
It can't be this tight, constrained.
Closed off,
Yeah.
community, which we were never. But I feel, in a way, also, it's the Indic or the Indians reacting to what they've seen. So, for example, I mean, a lot of people say we really didn't have a religion because we don't really have a book. We have a library. So there was not one sort of scripture, one book that we would follow. And so it was just a way of life. I mean, dharma is not religion, right? It's duty. And so when we were exposed to the Abrahamic religions of the West, we tried to formulate our own systems into what we believe was religion. But traditionally, we were not religion, right? We were absorbing all ideas. In fact, we wanted to bring Jesus into the fold as well and make him one of the pantheon of gods. I mean, that's what in this. But I understand it's the fear of some people of losing culture, because there was a certain attempt also at different points in Indian history where people wanted to, and it's happened in different areas before.
Of course.
And we have reached a stage where we've managed to protect it. Now, I don't think we'll be better than the invaders if we start behaving like them and become extremely radical and start promoting one thought or one way of thinking at all. That's not us. And I feel majority of people would agree with you and me. But politics, when it comes into the play also, it plays on certain emotions and fears, of course. And I really don't understand politics as much as I'd like to, so I don't want to make any comment without understanding how the entire vote banks and elections work in that sense. But I do understand the concern of the Indic people, and but I don't think that we should follow the path of who we are sort of lamenting, right? We should follow the Indic path where we accept everything, we will hold on to our culture, but we are open to understand and listen to everybody. And if we like something, we will take it, whether you like it or not. So it can be clothes, that can be food, that can be weapons, that can be buildings, that can be architecture, art, design, whatever. And we have this beauty, which I love, which is also a little comical, of making it our own, right? Somewhere down the line, even if it's something's come from outside, I mean, tomatoes and potatoes, everything.
Indian Chinese.
I mean, I'm sure I would enjoy it way better than going to China and eating authentic Chinese. I mean, just me. That's so
Some nice dogs, huh?
Oh God, no. That's one thing that.
मैंने जापान में स्पैरो खाया था, bro. I had to throw it out. Before we leave, and I will have you on 4 or 5 or 6
Oh yeah,
other
but
times.
we पता ही नहीं चला यार.
No, it's fine. I want to go on forever, but let me ask you some stuff around. Yeah, what is this Laal Maas thing?
So I have to. So Laal Maas is basically, as I say, like the blue city. The blue city of Jodhpur, and Laal Maas is basically a tourist trap, which was created in the late 80s to sell a certain dish or sell a certain idea to a tourist. There is no, if you come to any of our houses, if I still ask my grandmother, Laal Maas, she smirks and almost, you idiots, there is nothing called Laal Maas. Laal Maas is basically mutton curry, which is different in different houses. There is a Safed Maas, which would be made with cashews and dahi. And to counter that, like as India, Jaipur was the pink city much before independence. Also was called by different people, including Kipling and this British journalist. Blue city kabhi nahi tha. Bundi, if you go to, which is another princely state, is more blue
Than Jodhpur.
Than Jodhpur. You know, it's a natural thing. In a hot place, you'll paint your house blue because it'll absorb the heat
in
less.
Spain's fishing villages, which are very hot in the coast of Barcelona,
Yeah,
all houses are white.
white.
Pueblos. Crazy.
Santorini and all these fancy honeymoon places.
वो तो Greece की तरफ है, but like similar. Like the painting them white is an
In
aesthetic reason, and also because it perhaps helps absorb the sunlight or make it cool. But that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Laal Maas कुछ है नहीं.
Laal Maas
साला
could be-
mutton curry में क्या
So
यार?
and it's the worst thing. Please don't go to a restaurant to
We
eat
had
Laal
Laal
Maas.
Maas in every fucking place.
No, you have to have it at home. Basically, it's made. Jevrat, that friend of ours, or one of I have a lot of friends who make it, and that's we've sort of started not partying in that sense, but we meet and we cook because it's a nice interactive way of chilling also. So
yeah.
Laal Maas. Then there is a Jungli Maas, and Jungli Maas is my favorite, which is basically
Which is actually real.
which is real, which is Jungli is mass that you would go when back in the day when people would go on shikar, right? You wouldn't carry too many things. So Jungli mass has 4 ingredients: ghee, salt, red chilies, and meat. No curry, no onions, no garlic.
Love it.
And it is the most delicious. I mean, and well made is something
And it's
else.
gamey mass. Gamey mass.
It's not necessarily, because nowadays you can't get this thing. So it's regular mutton. Back in the day, it would be gamey mass. I mean, you could make chicken, mutton, teetar, sandgrouse, whatever. I mean, people would sort of shoot as hunting, as game birds. But Laal Maas is not a thing. I mean, there's certain peeves that I have, which Laal Maas is one of them. Like, for example, even the Pink City, for that matter, I mean, was not painted pink for Prince Albert. I mean, I understand, I speak in English, and I have a certain respect for what I've learned from the English, but colonialism had its disadvantages. Let's not talk about that, but it was definitely not. We have old manuscripts, we have old paintings which show that Jaipur was always this color. And it goes back to the idea of when I told you Jai Singh wanted to emulate the Mughal capitals and wanted to rival them. What was the imperial color of buildings at the time?
Pink.
Not pink, but red, right? Red Fort and red.
Right.
So Jaipur is not pink if you come
Jama
and see
Masjid
it.
भी लाल है.
Jaipur क्या color है? आप आके, was there any semblance of pink, or is it more a terracotta red?
क्या बोलेंगे उसको? ईंट का कलर है.
गेरुआ, हाँ, ईंट का color, terracotta, right? Because Jai Singh एक महल नहीं बना रहा था. Akbar and Shahjahan all made palaces for themselves and their retinue, right? Jai Singh wanted to make one for himself and for the entire people. So Jaipur has not, except the name Jaipur, there is no chowk, gully, rasta, named after the Maharajas or Maharanis or their kings. They're all named for the people. But because he was making such a large area, there was no quarry. Red sandstone आपको नहीं मिलेगा इतना 700 hectares में बनाने के लिए. And so he mined, and that's why Jaipur's walls are weak, because it's all mined rubble which is plastered with this clay which came from this village called Laal Sot. You may have crossed it. It's on the Delhi-Jaipur highway. So Laal Sot se, because Laal Sot had a very red clay sort of sand, and when they sort of created a plaster, and lipai bolte हम लोग. Lipai क्या उसका? It's aged to become this terracotta, this color.
I think वो मेरे को क्या कहते हैं? Whenever I met Amish Tripathi or
Oh, great guy. Enjoyed his books when I was a
Ashwin
child.
Sanghi, they, Ashwin says Ma Saraswati Kripa, and Amish says Shivji Kripa. I will say that you've been blessed by both. There is every single line you've said invites so many backdoor channels into so much more history, that I am saying this live and being held accountable for it, that I would love to have you on many more times.
Oh, lovely. I'm going to take you up on that, because it's a pleasure to come and chat with you also. It's hard to find people who, I mean, at least when you're in the history, I still have my parents roll their eyes when I talk about history, or my sister sometimes, because obviously when you're staying with people, it gets
If we can make them 1% kinder,
overbearing.
then, small wins, atomic habits,
Yeah.
1%. Where can people follow your work?
So I have my own page, which is a private page on Instagram. But my work I put on Instagram called Jaipur.houses and Jodhpur.houses. Jodhpur, unfortunately, I haven't been getting too much time to give attention
Because
to.
it is a city very far away from Jaipur. Let's
Because it's far away, because Jaipur's been sort of occupying my time more. My cousin brother also got married, so I don't want to trouble him because he's with his newlywed wife, and I don't want his cousin brother landing up every time and stuff like that. You have to give a little bit of a... but jokes apart, I basically... and Stepwell country is basically me going around Rajasthan and trying to map each and every water monument. That can be a water system, a stepwell, a step tank, a well... a well with steps, which is a different thing. It's called Kua is a normal well, but Kupa is a well with some steps inside. I'll give you an example of that. And recently, which is one last thing I'd like to, if you have time,
Of course.
is I've been working on trying to sort of organize and register an Art Deco society in Rajasthan. Now, I don't know whether a lot of people know, but Bombay and Marine Drive has the largest sort of collection of Art Deco buildings after Miami. Right?
It is beautiful. अच्छा वो आर्ट डेको है तभी इतना खूबसूरत लगता है
art
देखने में.
deco है.
उन्होंने प्रिजर्व कर रखा है उसको.
अच्छे से preserve किया है, but the first Art Deco building in India was in Rajasthan. Right? So Rajasthan, I'm sorry that I have to push Rajasthan into every sort of endeavor
Why would
that's
you
there.
not?
So the Umaid Bhavan was actually the first Art Deco building that was built in India. And Rajasthan has this rich Art Deco legacy, but I mean, most people don't know about the design movement at all. And because it was 1930s, 40s, 50s, it's not considered heritage. People say modern, and they're being demolished left, right, and center in places that are not protecting it. So I've been trying to sort of just rally the troops, speak to people, and I've spoken to lovely people who are associated with Art Deco in Rajasthan, and we're trying to just sort of work towards advocating for its rights a little more. So my other page is called Art Deco Rajasthan, and that's the end of me selling my pages to you.
अरे नहीं,
But,
not selling at all. Listen, man, I had a blast. I'm gonna,
Not too act. Some people say that even during my walks, I don't like making it too heavy. Because
not
a
heavy at
walk is basically it's a fun thing. Right now we're having a talk which can be a little deeper. But it's also important to make history fun and heritage fun or cool. You know?
I had fun on your walks. I will say full disclaimer. भाई इस आदमी का बहुत भलाई और बड़प्पन है. ये हमें समझा रहा है कि देखो इस दरवाजे के अंदर ये 19वीं सदी के मैं और समर कह रहे हैं मिठाई की दुकान पे चलता है.
You were dancing with that drunk. You remember? I still have that picture in my head.
we have that video of us dancing with that drunk doing jumping jacks and
Yeah,
you're like,
dude.
what the fuck? But no, man, I had a blast. I'm going to have you on again, and people can follow your work. And once again, you were a vantage point for a very central trip in my life. And thank you for your time. And it was great talking to you.
No, thank you for having me, and hope to come soon. And obviously, we're going to stay in touch. And it was an absolute pleasure to come and talk. I enjoy talking. That's why I do the walk also. Enjoy talking about these certain things. So
Great.
thank you.